If you watch modern television, Ertugrul is a larger-than-life hero, a legendary warrior on horseback who seemingly willed the Ottoman Empire into existence. According to standard Ottoman tradition, he was the fearless leader of the Kayi tribe, chosen by divine providence to lay the groundwork for a world-dominating dynasty. But there is a catch. These epic origin stories weren't recorded during his lifetime. They were written more than 100 years after he died, specifically designed to legitimize the later ruling dynasty. If you search through the surviving Seljuk and Byzantine chronicles from the actual 13th century, you will not find a single mention of his name. Later court historians stitched together noble lineages to elevate their founders. They even assigned him a famous aristocratic father, the legendary Suleiman Shah. But modern historians know this connection is entirely false. The Ertuğrul celebrated in those manuscripts is an act of retrospective imperial propaganda. To find the actual human being, we have to look past the mythology and rely on cold, hard, physical evidence. That evidence comes down to a single worn silver coin. Minted by his son, Osman, this small piece of metal is the only undeniable proof we have that Ertuğrul was a real historical figure. The inscription on this coin is brief, but it explicitly identifies Osman's grandfather and Ertuğrul's real father as a man named Gündüz Alp, shattering the later royal family tree. This points to a much grittier reality. In the early 1200s, Ertuğrul was no destined emperor. He was a desperate nomadic chieftain trying to keep his people from starving or being slaughtered in the mountains of Anatolia. The Kayı tribe was on the run. The Mongol conquests were sweeping out of Central Asia, displacing thousands of Turkic groups and pushing them westward into unknown, hostile territory. Grounded, authoritative. Understanding the real Ertuğrul means letting go of the idea of a grand holy crusade. His early life was the brutal day-to-day survival of a displaced refugee caught in a geopolitical meat grinder. 13th century Anatolia was completely fractured. It was a chaotic frontier where rival warlords and collapsing states fought bitter skirmishes for control over scarce resources. This map illustrates the vice squeezing the Kayi tribe. Massive Mongol armies are pushing relentlessly from the east, represented by these red arrows. In the west, the rigid borders of the Byzantine Empire hold the line. And trapped right in the middle is this single nomadic group. Faced with this pressure, the tribe made a hard choice to split up. While his brothers took their clans and retreated back toward the east, Ertuğrul led his remaining followers deeper into the western frontier. To survive here, they leveraged their only real currency, highly lethal skills as mounted horse archers. Every move he made was a reaction to the massive forces closing in around him. He was a survivor, making tactical, pragmatic deals to keep his people alive. That pragmatism led Ertuğrul to offer his tribe's military services to Kaykubad I, the ruler of the Seljuk Sultanate of Rome. This was a strictly transactional arrangement. The Seljuks needed a violent buffer to absorb Byzantine raids, and the Kayi tribe desperately needed state protection and a physical place to pitch their tents. For their service, the Sultan rewarded them with land grants in the mountainous Karacabağ region, located between Diyarbakır and Urfa. More importantly, Ertuğrul earned the title of Uchbey, or Marcher Lord. In the Seljuk system, this was an official state designation granted to local chieftains who successfully held the borderlands against enemies. Accepting this title formally integrated the tribe into the Seljuk political hierarchy. They were no longer rogue operators, they were officially recognized agents of the Sultanate. By securing this status, Ertuğrul successfully transitioned his people from landless, wandering refugees into legitimate stakeholders on the Anatolian frontier. His ultimate reward was Söğüt, situated right on the edge of the Byzantine border. With its access to the Sakarya River and fertile valleys, it offered the perfect physical environment for a nomadic tribe to finally settle. Despite what the legends suggest, holding on to this small settlement was completely unglamorous. They were a tiny group, heavily outnumbered, and entirely surrounded by hostile factions. Maintaining control of Söğüt took decades of delicate diplomacy. Ertuğrul negotiated complex alliances with local Christian neighbors and fended off rival Turkic clans, relying far more on political compromise than on open warfare. He held that fragile balance until his death around 1280, at which point he passed this small but stabilized territory to his son, Osman. Over the centuries, later Ottoman sultans aggressively rebuilt and expanded his humble grave. Rulers like Abdülhamid II in the late 19th century funded lavish renovations, projecting their own vast imperial power backward onto their founder. Stripping away the illuminated manuscripts and the television dramas, the historical Ertuğrul remains highly pragmatic. He used targeted violence and shrewd diplomacy to secure and defend a tiny patch of earth for his people. He did not conquer the world, but by surviving the crushing pressures of the 13th century, he built the stable geopolitical launchpad that his son would use to construct an empire that lasted 600 years.